Hello, my name is Tim Hetherington. I co-produced, directed and filmed Restrepo.
My name's Sebastian Younger, and I co-produced, co-directed and co-filmed the documentary Restrepo.
But it was filming in very arduous situations, and we needed to do that so that we could be with the soldiers every step of the way. And I think that once they saw that we were willing to do exactly what they were doing, every patrol, every combat situation, then they opened up to us, and that's how we got so emotionally close to them.
It's also worth pointing out that soldiers feel fear as well, and they volunteer for their jobs. They were out there electively just as much as Tim and I were, and they all had to confront their own feelings about it and basically overcome them in some way.
There's been a lot of discussion about the embed system, and the U.S. Army provides a physical system that journalists can go in and be embedded. But I know a lot of people who do tours, rotations as journalists inside Iraq or Afghanistan, and they point out that usually they're 3 weeks with a group of soldiers. Sebastian and I took the embed system, but I think we mined it further than anybody else has done previously. And we ended up spending 10 months in total with this unit, 5 months each at different times, sometimes together, sometimes apart. And that's because we wanted to become emotionally embedded with the soldiers. The problem with doing short embeds is you never really connect with the soldiers in any way. You connect them in maybe a superficial level, but all soldiers when they first meet journalists are very kind of yes sir, no sir, and won't really open up. And so the problem with network news is obviously that owing to costs, they just can't field reporters away from the offices for that long. And I guess that's where the advantage and the kind of emotional nuances of our film come from, the fact that we're willing to spend that much time, and also the fact that we funded the film ourselves. From start to finish, we put the money up because we wanted to have editorial control, and we realized that if we'd sold it out to anybody beforehand, before we'd finished it, we would have lost that process of control.
Well, it's a very sensitive issue, not just for the military command, but for the soldiers themselves and the soldiers' families to show a dead or wounded soldier. And it's not really a matter of censorship so much as sensitivity. And so that is as filmmakers, as journalists, we want to put forward an honest view of war, and war involves people getting wounded and killed, and it's pretty ugly. But on the other hand, you do want to be able to come home and feel okay about what you show the American public on screen. And it's a very fine balance that I think, at least for me, probably the most difficult person I have to answer to is not some general who's trying to censor the media, but my own sense of morality. And it's a very, very complicated thing.
And I'd also add that I filmed. Not only did I film U.S. soldiers, graphic images of U.S. soldiers that had died, one guy shot through the head, and we had those images, and I had images of dead Afghan young boys who were killed by an Apache attack helicopter, and I showed neither of those images in the whole graphic sense of them, because as Sebastian says, I don't think it brought anything useful to the film. The only thing it would bring would be to show people that we hadn't self-censored ourselves. But if that's the only thing that we're doing by showing it, then really that's like a Pyrrhic victory.
I think every single war includes revisions of strategy that later look like mistakes. Dunkirk. What were the Allies thinking with Dunkirk? 6,000 men died, or something like that. Complete folly, right? I think that happens in every war. This was just a situation that we got to know very, very well, and so it's particularly poignant to us. The soldiers themselves, they don't want more men dying in the Korangal Valley, but they also don't want to feel like their sacrifice was in vain. And I don't know that they're able to reconcile those two things. I know it's a very upsetting topic to them. And initially, when they heard that the U.S. might pull out, they were quite angry. Many of them were quite angry about it. But it's extremely complicated. And then at some point this war will end, and those questions will be asked on a grand scale. You know, did we need to go to Afghanistan or not? And ultimately, I'm not even sure they're answerable.
Yesterday we had a screening at the Yarrow, and the family of Larry Rugel, who was killed during the film, and his wife and his daughter came, and we met them before the screening, and it was a very emotional moment. You know, I talked to Mrs. Rugel, and she obviously wants to know what happened to her son, and I was there on the day and when he was killed, not far from him, and filmed him, and it was a very upsetting moment for me. So much so that I couldn't really go through with this to introduce the film or do the Q&A. It's, you know, still things that I guess that I thought I dealt with that I haven't, that come out. And so Sebastian took over and carried on with the Q&A.
No, I was not there when Larry Rugel was killed, and so I mistakenly thought that the situation might have less emotional resonance for me. But as soon as I met the family afterwards, it was really a struggle to just not kind of lose it. And particularly because they were very upset, and they were very, they liked the film, and they were glad we made the film, and that was almost more poignant. I was incredibly relieved that they liked the film, but you know, at one point, a particularly difficult moment, the 7-year-old daughter, I think she's about 7 years old, had a question for me. I kind of knelt down to talk to her, and she asked if I'd known her dad and what kind of man he was like, and so I described a patrol I'd gone on with Sergeant Rugel, and that was pretty tough, and then emotionally, and then, you know, basically the little girl was the only person not crying in the group at that point, and then she said, why did you survive? Ask me, why did you survive? And I said, well, I was really lucky. And I said, everyone who survived in that valley was really lucky. You know, of course, the flip side of that question is, why did my daddy not survive? And, you know, it's the kind of thing that I think only a child would think to ask, and I don't think any adult really has an answer for.